And this is Bridget's graduation.
My mom is the heart and soul of this family. When you meet my mom, you understand where my siblings come from, because we each have a different part of her. My dad was a utility worker with a gas company. He was my hero. He could do everything. So taking us to Washington and standing on the mall looking down at the Lincoln Memorial. So showing up at West Point the first day of cadet basic training. And I have deer in the headlights look, what am I getting myself into? The book begins here at West Point. My room is sort of way up there. If you wanted to keep your milk cold, you bring the milk cartons back from the mess hall. It's just eerie to be back in the same room. Just the smell of being in the barracks, it's inescapable. It brings you immediately back. It smells of Lysol and body odor. The top drawer of every cadet room should look exactly the same. Could probably, if I looked closely, find a few mistakes. And this is not up to standard. And I think a clipboard's distance from the end of the bed, and it's all got to be very, very tight. It's hard to say that West Point gave me discipline, intensity. I mean, those were clearly parts of who I was before I went to West Point. My shoulder had this awful tendency to dislocate. I'd go for a takedown, sort of tackle someone's leg, and then if they sprawled out on your shoulder, you just get all that pressure. My West Point parade hat, very uncomfortable. And then you get these awful winds coming up off the Hudson River. Inevitably, one of the cadets is going to lose his tar bucket. That's what they call the hat. This is one of the more important awards that I've ever received. The Alexander Hattel III Award. And Major Hattel had been killed in action in Vietnam. He'd been a Rhodes Scholar. I'd read his obituary. He says, we only have one death to spend, and insofar as it has any meaning, it has it in the service to others. And I just thought that was an incredible inspiration as I began my own Army career. And these cadets know when they graduate that they're going to be serving in combat in a way that I didn't know for sure when I graduated in 2000.
What I saw was Craig, a boy turning into a man. And that continued to course with Ranger School, the most difficult school the Army runs.
You test the limits of both mind and body and physical strength.
You have to tackle the Malvesti obstacle course. You see it as soon as you walk in on day one. And my shoulder dislocates just as I dove into the mud. And I'm pulling myself through this muck with just one arm, and I'm getting yelled at by the ranger instructor to get out of his mud.
You know, people joke about this, but that you repeat Ranger School again or go to Iraq or Afghanistan, I think most people who've been through Ranger School would say they'd go to Iraq or Afghanistan.
Craig was very interested in going to Oxford and in becoming a Rhodes Scholar.
Oxford was this unparalleled opportunity to follow my intellectual curiosity and to meet my wife and to travel the world and to return to the Army with a much better idea of who I was and where I wanted to go with my life. So when I started dating Mina, I wanted to learn Hindi, and so I made flashcards.
Anything that he takes an interest in, he gives 110% of himself. When he met Mina, it was like all of a sudden he wanted to know about Indian culture, so he had to read all Indian literature, and we had to go to India.
I described it in the book as a wooing offensive. It was almost a military campaign to win her affection. It was my first attempt to win hearts and minds. Good practice in the end for being a counterinsurgent in Afghanistan.